Streaming. Recording. All right. Here. I made this note and then I ended up not doing anything on this day. I think I'm going to delete. I'll leave it for now. I don't think I'm going to make a note for today. Maybe. Figuring out, finalizing, login, setup. So, first of what app? Yeah, I was gonna look at React Native stuff, but I don't think I'm gonna do that right now. So I'm gonna prioritize basically getting something built as fast as I can. That's not the main reason. So the point of today is that in previous planning, I was gonna kind of copy what Signal and WhatsApp do, which is where you have a primary device, and then you have secondary device, like linked devices. Actually, I'm thinking about this now. So each device needs a leaf key, no matter what, like whether it's a primary device or secondary device or whatever, to be able to encrypt their own messages. But so anyway, Signal and WhatsApp, you log in on your phone, and then after you're logged in on your phone, if you want to like log in on your browser or on your iPad or something like that, you have to like copy a QR code. And that's how you do the linking. You can't just like enter your password or enter your phone number in on the browser or on the iPad and then have it like link it as a new device. So that model's a little bit nice because you never have to because there's no password for WhatsApp or Signal either, so they don't really even need, like, there's no risk you're going to lose your password, right? But I think the risk is that they don't want you to lose your primary keys to your account, possibly, or access to all of the data. Because, like, at least for Signal, it doesn't sync all of your historical data. I think they might add that at some point, I'm not sure, for the secondary devices. But I don't know why you wouldn't just be able to connect the device. I think part of it is that they don't want someone who gets access to your phone number to be able to like log you out of your account on other devices. And that's where it's kind of difficult to prevent that. So if anyone can log in from any device with, say, your phone number, then if someone logs in on a device, they can log you out of your phone. They wouldn't have access to all the historical stuff necessarily, because you can choose whether to allow that or not. I mean, Signal doesn't even have the historical stuff on your computer, so that's not really the issue for Signal. For Signal, I think the main purpose of the primary device is to prevent someone from being able to take over the account with the phone number alone immediately. To switch the primary account, you need the PIN, and the PIN basically tells the server, hey, this can be linked as a new primary device. For Signal, I assume for WhatsApp as well. So my setup's a little bit different because I have a password requirement as well as a phone number requirement. So you would need access to both the phone number and the password. And the phone number is what you need to escalate the device privilege, which is what would give you access to the historical data. So, I'm kind of just reasoning about this in my head. I can start to talk to the models about this. I mean, I've talked to them before, but every time I talk about something like this, it's like, especially Codex is not very good at this. Claude's a little bit better about like following the chain of reasoning. But I find they'll get me more confused because they'll just say, oh, yeah, of course, do this, do that. So what do I want to do? What do I want to do? Okay, so this is a different thing. Plan. Professor. So what is our current situation is also a bit different than say WhatsApp or Signal, in that we require both a phone number verification and password. This also lets us make some distinctions between having one or both, say for escalating privilege, like for example, accessing historical data. I think for historical, require the passphrase. Can't remember. We actually have like 3 different pieces of information. You actually have 3 independent authentication factors. Phone number plus SMS code proves identity/account ownership. Password derives the account symmetric key, which is what you need to be able to get back access to your current groups. Okay. And then a recovery passphrase, which unlocks history. So if someone got access to your password, they wouldn't have access to your history. They would only have access to be able to post as you, but they would still need your phone number. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty interesting. It's kind of complicated though, because the thing is so the ideal thing would be you do some kind of QR code setup. Oh, I've taken you out like 5 times. You kidding me? What do you want? What do you want, pup? So this potentially, you could make people's lives easier by, if they had an active session, you could scan, say, a QR code or something. It would basically just use the passphrase. Full current epic access. The history secret being separate and on-demand is nice. It means a compromised password doesn't give historical message access. The attacker needs the passphrase too, which is offline. You log in normally, you chat normally, and if you scroll up past what's cached locally, the app prompts you to enter your recovery password. No trust promotion, no waiting periods, no device manager, you just provide the secret. Is the history secret... Is the history secret the same as the recovery passphrase? Interesting. Yeah, I think I was going to have them separate. The recovery passphrase would be your alternative to your password if you forget your password. So if they're the same, if you have access to the recovery, but the thing is so recovery is an alternative to the password. So if you make the recovery also access the history, then the recovery is stronger than the password, even though it's a single passphrase. But it's really complicated to tell a user they have two passphrases they need. I'm not sure on having the recovery passphrase and history collapsed or separate. If we collapse them, then recovery passphrase means more. It's essentially stronger password, which is maybe fine. Probably a good... Okay. But the thing I was thinking... What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Cleanly to the UX. Historical. Oh yeah. One other thing I'm forgetting. How does a user reset? Because they would do this without knowing. On collapsing, I think it's fine. The recovery passphrase is 132 bits of entropy versus whatever the user picks for their password. It's strictly stronger, and having one secret to manage instead of two is a real UX win. The mental model becomes password for daily use, passphrase for everything else. On resetting, this is where it gets interesting. Recovery passphrase reset. Recovery passphrase. You enter your password, generate a new mnemonic, rewrap the account symmetric key with the new recovery wrapping key, upload the new blob. Password proves you're authorized to rotate the recovery envelope. Straightforward. But if passphrase also wraps, see that's what, like, especially with codecs, I find that if I start talking about this, like, it doesn't keep track of these things. And so even like Vlad was just telling me, oh, we can collapse them, but like this is really important to figure out before you decide to do that. And so you kind of end up going in these loops, and so you've got to really make sure that you're keeping track of everything yourself. And in something like this that's got so many things you got to factor in, it becomes pretty hard. So let's see what happens here, because it'll just keep bringing up like, oh, what about this or that? Then you never solve the problem, or I never solve. I'm resetting. Passphrase also wraps the history vaults. Resetting means entering your password, lose account ownership, enter current passphrase, generate new passphrase. Re-encrypt every history vault. History vault. We have a history vault for each group. Yeah, that just has the keys. It has your keys, your historical keys for each group, so you can unencrypt the messages. One's gonna be super loud again. Re-encrypt every history. You can't skip step 2. If the user has forgotten their current passphrase, they can't re-encrypt the history vaults. They can't read them. What if the user has a currently logged in session? The problem I can imagine there is that someone able to take over the account, the password, shouldn't be able to delete the history. How would we recognize that? Attacker has the password, logs in, resets the passphrase, and now the real user's history vault are either deleted or replaced. That's all I'm thinking about today, so I'm not gonna stress too much. I don't need to do anything. I can just figure out what the fuck the plan is. It's good enough. Need a plan. It's such a struggle too. Once you start hitting this stuff, or at least for me, it becomes so hard to make progress. Because even if I figure out a plan, it takes so much energy to make the plan. And it's so non-incremental doing it all. I don't know if other people are better at this than me. I don't know why, like for the UI stuff, you know, I can just start doing that. Because I think for me with the UI stuff, when I lay it out, I know I can just blow it all away and start over again every single time. And so I'm not worried about just kind of like, you know, putting pen down to paper or whatever, writing code. But for this stuff, it becomes such a core part of every single thing you do from then on that there's no there's no starting over. There's like, oh, I fucked up and we're just gonna live with that. And so then you just get this like huge pile of work stacked that needs to be done. And it's very hard for me to make, like, you need to just chip away at it, right? But it doesn't feel good really to chip away at because you haven't you still can't do it. You still can't use the thing until it's all done. Okay. The thread is attacker has the password logs again. The simple answer, password only session can't touch history vaults at all. Not reset, not delete, not overwrite. Passphrase is required for any mutation to history. The server enforces write, overwrite, delete history vault requires proof of current passphrase. So yeah, this is one thing I don't like about this model compared to the model that sort of Signal and WhatsApp have, where you don't have the server keep track of the history, like it's all client side. The benefit of that is there's no risk the server can delete your history. Like, it just can't happen. When you cache all this stuff client side, like still with my app or whatever, happy groups, I can make it all cache client side. So even if the server would delete it, you could still have it locally. That's probably what I'll do. But when you're in this model, you kind of expect the history shouldn't ever be deleted. And so you can imagine if someone hacks in, they can't see any of the data, but they could really fuck you up by just randomly deleting stuff, because this is all server enforced. And that's why it's nice to not have to remove as much server enforced stuff as possible. Why do I yawn when I stream? No one watching. Still yawn. Make progress. Requires proof of current passphrase. Client decrypts a challenge blob or provides a decrypt. Client decrypts a challenge blob. That session has the epic secrets in memory, but the server doesn't know or care. The server's gate is on the vault mutation API, not on what is the client's memory. So even if the session has history decrypted locally, it can't re-encrypt under a new passphrase and upload without providing knowledge of the current passphrase to the server. This means the attacker with the password can read current epic messages, then messages as a user, but cannot access Whoa. Descent into insanity. Playing the same music over and over again. So the user with the full session can't change the passphrase either without knowing the previous passphrase, but they're able to modify the history vaults, right? Because of how they leaf keys. Complicated. It's funny because, like, I think about all this stuff, and most companies, and, like, you know, most places begin to think about this stuff. There's probably like a handful of people at Apple who think about, you know, I mean, people obviously think about stuff, but even those companies, like, their models are relatively simple because they kind of need to be, because that's the only thing people were able to implement in them. So surely in 10, 15 years, 10 years, people will, like, think about stuff like this a little bit more. There'll be other ways to do it, whatever, but it's just feels very similar to me when I was originally learning web development and trying to build complicated stuff. Most people hadn't even began to think about like how you would do the full thing. And I mean, even still, like the architecture questions that are asked in interviews, you know, you say, oh, we'll use React for the front end, we'll use microservices, we'll use Kubernetes, whatever the fuck you say. And it's like most people have never even touched those things. So there's so much nuance, right? Like if I was in an interview and they ask, you know, what's something complicated you've worked on? It's like, well, I built the front end for this. And how much do you say about this? It uses React, it uses design systems. You have to manage all of this, right? There's a huge amount of complexity here that, like, if you haven't touched it, you wouldn't understand how hard or easy it is to do. But you can like sum it up into a word or two, right? Like you just like for infrastructure stuff, you could say, oh, we use Kubernetes or microservices. But like, how do you make sure the services are reliable? Like, how do you do the alerting? How's all that stuff all hooked up? Why is the alerting reliable? Is it reliable? Why does it need to be or not? What are your choices? And the reality is in the real world, the choices you make depend entirely on what actually exists, not just like, oh, we'll use Vault because it works. Like there's trade-offs to using Vault versus the other alternatives and stuff. Even if they, like using Kafka versus the other ththing, RabbitMQ. Like why would you use it? It's much more interesting than like, I'm gonna use it in a message queue. Or SQS, you know, or like AWS Lambda versus Knative versus OpenPass. Like, why would you use one of those versus the other? And I think most people don't have the context or experience to actually make those choices. Big one, because they see them all as the same, but of course they're different. With using like Azure versus AWS versus GCP, so that's like not something that would be asked in a architecture or even tested. Fucking distracted. The XML model is more like this. So access update requires a session to have the history wrapping key. How does a server distinguish between a session that legitimately has the passphrase in memory versus an attacker who logged in and just has the password and is trying to overwrite vaults with garbage? The client has the history wrapping key in memory, but the server needs some proof of that. The client has the history wrapping key in memory, but the server needs some proof of that. Server-side challenge. At passphrase entry time, client derives a separate proof key and registers it with the server. Server gates vaults write access on that proof. Attacker with only the password can't produce it. This is pretty good. Vault Mac. Yeah, option 1 is me too. Client includes a Mac. No, the vault is encrypted with the passphrase drive. Client can produce a validly encrypted blob. Server can't verify this without the key. Option 1 seems the cleanest. At the moment this user enters their passphrase, the client derives both the history wrapping key and a history auth key. The server stores the history auth key hash server knows this session has a proven passphrase. So another thing that kind of is interesting here is I'd probably want to build something so people can back up their data themselves, locally or wherever they want to back it up to. That way they could restore it. What happens in the case that they have a backup and they restore the backup, like does that overwrite the existing stuff? How does that mesh together if something's in the history or in the backup that's not? I think for the most part is the client can't like send new messages that need to be sent, like historically, so they can only send like a new message, like a brand new message, not something that they restored from history or anything like that. So I don't think that should be an issue. You just have to do some kind of like merge resolution issue, pick whichever one's the latest or something. I don't know. Should be doable. It's like trying to climb Mount Everest. We're just like taking a couple of steps, a couple more steps. That's where it's nice to kind of do stuff that other people can then build off of, so you can get some momentum, right? So like, if I could get this to a point where other people somewhere out in the world thought this had value and they could contribute in some way, that's a much more effective way to do things than this way I'm trying to just like carry the world, carry the, I don't know, everything on my shoulders. But it's hard. Like I don't know how I would do this in a way where other people contribute. Then you have those risks too, that they do malicious stuff, and now you have to factor in all that type of stuff. And you have communication overhead. I don't really know that it ends up faster unless you have some large amount of value that other people are contributing. Maybe I underestimate that. I like option 1, and this means session already has the history wrapping key in memory. It can generate a new passphrase, derive a new history wrapping key plus new history. Re-encrypt all history vaults with the new key. Enter passphrase once at some point during the session. That session can rotate the passphrase at any time without re-entering it. The server just checks, does this session have a valid history all key? Doesn't care whether the client derived it 5 minutes ago or 5 hours ago. So now the thing I think is, I was just thinking about if you back up your data locally and then you restore it to your session, you can't put that data back in the server because the group messages are separate. So restoring doesn't actually let you like keep the restored messages session to session. Say you log into a new device, those restored messages would not be there because those restored messages were not actually saved to the group history. Those are just like your own copies of the group history. So fuck. So got hard. Haven't dropped any frame. Meant for that 4,000 kilobits per second or megabits per second. I would like to do like 6,000. Oh, it looks weird. So the compression, the camera itself. Oh, I see. Re-encrypt a password-only attacker. One edge case for knowing what if the session that unlocked history gets terminated before the user rotates. Also keeps the server logic simple. Just verifies the history auth key on every mutation request. Stateless from the server's perspective. I agree with this. Now, one thing I'm thinking about. It would be nice. But even if we had a way to store this history to their session, that history wouldn't persist since they can't. Presumably, they would be storing local history. They lost access to their historical. It seems like with this model, we It seems like with this model, history managed by the server, we can't really allow users to back up their data locally in any meaningful way. The Signal WhatsApp model is definitely the inverse of this. And it makes sense, right? I guess Bitwarden probably lets you back up your passwords locally and for them. Vault, that works because it's not a shared history. Vault is yours. You can export and re-import because there's no shared state. Your passwords don't depend on cryptographic relationships with other users. Signal and WhatsApp messages are local. You can back up your own copy because that is the copy. Restoring it just means putting your data back on your device. Happy groups the server managed history. Messages are shared and encrypted with MLS epic keys. Your history is really access to the epic secrets that encrypt the shared ciphertext stored on the server. Logo. Messages are shared encrypted with MLS epic keys. Your history is really access to epic secrets to decrypt the shared ciphertext stored on the server. The local backup of decrypted messages is just a import. It can't be meaningfully restored to a live session. So the reason we're doing this, or the reason I'm doing this, is so you post photos into your group, or you post stuff into your group, right? And for Signal, everyone maintains their own copy of that, which is, it's okay. But you know, it's a huge expense. And also each person's responsible for their own copy instead of like the group being responsible for the copy of the group history. And so if you have 100 people, each person has their own copy of all the messages they've had access to, instead of just saving the keys that they've had to decrypt the messages over the lifetime period they've been in the group, which is a much smaller set of data for each person to keep track of. And then the server keeps a single copy, which means that the server can much more efficiently store this data. Otherwise, each person has to pay for the storage, which obviously is good for if you're trying to charge people money, not good for the world. There was some way I wanted to keep track of who, like, messages that no one had access to anymore. I don't know how you would do that though. You know when each member joined. You don't necessarily know what's in their historical vaults. Hmm. Then you can start asking questions too, like, what if you wanted people to be able to choose for their group whether history was permanently available or like only forward secrecy? Because some people maybe would want to have groups where when you invite someone, they can see all of the photos from I mean, that's how a Facebook group. When you join the Facebook group, you can see all of the content from the Facebook group. I understand some groups where you would want that. But I also don't really like it. Because then someone invites someone to a group and it's like they just have, like, you maybe didn't know that person or whatever. So anyway, building out, you can obviously build the ability to do it either way, but it's like a whole separate thing to build, and so you got to think about, you know, which one is the one you want to do, because you can't do every possible. Right? So I can't do public groups and the encrypted private groups. I can't do variations of the encrypted private, like, until you have some amount of users, and even then, it's so difficult to add these features on retroactively. Even if you have lots of employees and stuff or something, it's still very difficult to do. You really got to just decide what you want. Maybe the original person can repost. Then if you have comments, those comments wouldn't necessarily show up. This is tough. And it's like, do people just want super simple groups, like Facebook alternative? It's like literally just groups. I mean, I definitely, people don't know what the encryption does for the most part, so I don't know how much value that has, like, unless you're in Europe and you specifically care about it. But, you know, like, should I just making what too? No, I really like the idea of like having private as a platform, which means you have forward secrecy. That's what I'm gonna build. That's what I prefer. Oh, wait for Claude. Bugs. Signal, we don't store your messages, so you better back them. Private groups, we store the encrypted messages, and your passphrase unlocks them from any session. The server stored history is the backup. The passphrase is the restore mechanism. One other thing. One other thing I'm thinking about. If the user has a valid session, and we could also easier for them another session. New session, login with phone plus password. New session displays QR code containing a temporary public key. Existing session scans QR code. Encrypted channel established between sessions. New sessions. Existing session sends history wrapping key plus a history auth key over the chain. New session now has full history access without the user ever typing. One thing to decide, should the QR transfer keys persist across session reason? Can you give me... And security properties still hold. An attacker with just the password on a new client can access history. Logout should probably give users the choice. Logout, clear session token, keep encrypted keys. Control D.
I explained that logging out clears all data from the device, but you can still log back in with your phone and password to access new messages, while old message history becomes inaccessible unless you have a QR transfer or the original passphrase. I noted that you can generate a new passphrase after logging in, which will only protect future messages, and recommended adding explicit warnings and periodic reminders about saving the passphrase. It's kind of crazy to have to rotate all group history vaults.
It's it's just like losing its mind. It's not able to track the logic. This is be wrong. User has history keys, logs in with password, history keys, auto unlock, and now they can view their passphrase before logging. That actually works. Also means if they've already lost all sessions with history keys, they can't recover the passphrase, which is correct. The same as if you've lost your recovery passphrase and have sessions history's gone. Storage does add value for the about to log out flow. We don't currently have single here.
I explained that IndexedDB, HappyGroup Ski Store, holds only cryptokey objects because they cannot be serialized to JSON, while the SQLite WebAssembly database, via OPFS, Keisley, and YSQLite, stores structured app data such as message history, group state, and a local cache of server data, with the encrypted passphrase saved there alongside other data. I noted that on logout, the destroy database function removes the OPFS SQLite file and ClearKeys wipes IndexedDB. So both stores are cleared, whereas locking merely clears the session token and leaves the stores intact.
Ooh. I wonder if this thing downloads user data to like a SQLite or IndexedDB instead of having a bunch of APIs. Green. So, where I am. Punchy.
Lao Po.
Lao Po. Lao Po.
老婆
Oh.
老婆
Oh man. This is
老婆，
doot.
老婆，
老婆老婆
老婆，老婆，
老婆老婆
老婆，老婆，
老婆老婆
老婆，
No idea what.
"儿子
Hurts. Hurts the.
儿子，
儿子儿子
儿子，儿子，
儿子
King Pub.
儿子
儿子，儿子，
儿子儿子
儿子，儿子，
Ding. I think that's a really strong synthesis. He moves from feature sequencing debate to a clear security model, which is the part. Web first, progressive web app plus full history is internally consistent anywhere. Dropping primary/linked complexity. Your capability model. Clean and easy to explain. Incremental history loading as a first-class requirement is exempt. Main things I tighten before logging. Per login MLS leaf. If every login creates a new leaf, you'll cause constant group membership churn. commit storm. Per installation. Be explicit about what the passphrase protects. Passphrase is a bootstrap factor plan, not a per login thing. History auth proof should be use per request signed HBAC. How would we avoid this for a little bit? How would it work? Find MLS leaf keys to device installation, not to an auth session. For web, this means this browser gets one long leaf. But what happens? Yeah, this is pretty challenging. So if another logs in, one physical browser installation can hold multiple account device identities. MLS leafs should be per account installation pair. So if user B logs in on the same browser, they get a wouldn't this let You have pieces, but not a formal browser at rest. Missing is the explicit key hierarchy on web. This should be added as a first class. What is Signal and WhatsApp? Let me do this actually. Codex. All this. I believe he should be scoped, not to logins. Our login leave keys cause MLS churn that scales with how often people open their browser. It's absurd for messaging. Everything downstream, soft logout, multi-account. Leaf key reuse depends on having proper at-rest encryption. Without it, you're either storing sensitive key material in the clear, wiping out every logout and recreating leaf keys anyways. How do you Signal and WhatsApp? I would guess.
美国人、日本人、
美国人、日本人、
韩国、
中国。
嗨，我是日本人。
Hello. Hello. I am Korean person. Coffee.
咖啡、
饭、
米饭、
汤、
汤、
茶、
茶、
茶。
中国和日本、
中国、日本。
中国、
China and
我是日本人。
我是韩国人，你呢？我
my brain. Good question. Both Signal and WhatsApp use two things in combination to keep leaf key small: a hard device cap and the primary linked model that makes the phone the gate. Signal allows a primary phone plus up to 5 linked devices, and devices auto unlinked after 30 days of inactivity. Linking requires scanning a QR code from the phone. You can't accidentally accumulate devices. Each one is intentional and active with the primary. WhatsApp uses a client fan-out approach where sending client encrypts, transmits the n times. Uses a client fan-out approach where the sending client encrypts and transmits the message n times to n different devices in the sender and receiver's device list. They cap it at 4 companion devices plus the primary phone, and auto logout happens after 2 weeks of activity on. Cost of each additional device is real multiplicative. In a group of 8 members with 3 devices, each message gets times. The caps keep that manageable. You drop the primary linked model to get the bit warden simplification. If that model was doing double duty, it was also the natural throttle on device proliferation. Without it, there's nothing stopping a user from accumulating devices by logging in from various browsers and never explicitly logging out. What would I do to replace that throttle without reintroducing device hierarchy? First, enforce a server-side cap. When the user hits the limit, they either have to explicitly remove one of the oldest ones, or device gets evicted. This is the same user-facing constraint, just without a primary gatekeeper. Server enforces it directly. Second, auto-expire inactive devices. When installation hasn't been active for 30 days, the server revokes it and issues a remove commit to the groups. Handles the login at. Oh, but then they would lose access to the messages. That login messages. Right? I wonder if in my model it even Woshu, Hongguo, you know? I am a creep.
我是中国人，你呢？
国人。中国。
中国。
美国。
美国。
我是美国人，你。
日本人。
日本、美国。
日本。
我是韩国人，你呢？
我是中国人。
嗨，我是中国人。
Korean.
我是韩国人，你呢？
我是中国人。
Interesting instinct, and it makes sense given your every session equal model. In a device hierarchy, why should your tree even know about devices? But I think it's a trap once you dig into how MLS actually works. The core problem, MLS has mutable state leaf. The leaf key isn't just a static identity, it's tied to the ratchet tree involved with every epoch. Two of your devices share a leaf, you need to have identical state at all times. The moment one device processes it, it hasn't seen yet, they diverge. The shared leaf key means synchronized MLS ratchet state across. It's a harder coordination problem than just having separate. You need a real-time sync channel between your own devices to keep their tree state in sync, and you need to serialize which device is allowed to its moment. You essentially move the concurrency problem from the group level into a per-user device coordination problem. Separate per-device leaves gives you, it's hard to replicate forward secrecy isolation. If one device is compromised, you revoke the leaf and then tap it.
Hi.
查 茶、
嗨，
热、
热，
知识、
这是
秩序、咖啡、
嗨，
韩国、
美国和中国。
韩国和中国，和中国。我是韩国人，你呢？
我是
我是韩国人，你呢？
中国、美国，美国。
这是日本。
这是日本。
美国和日本，美国
和
和日本。
我是嗨，我日本人。我是中国人。
不是中。Where we go? So I have two things, right? I need to deal with I need to make it easier possible for a device to keep using its leaf key. I am
日本、美国。
日本。
我是中国人。
Legend. Tab is only meaningful if devices hold onto the leaf keys long enough that you get. Full nuances though. Tab, you need server-side auto-expiry, not just a hard count. Tab prevents runaway device accumulation. Expiry handles the... When the server expires a device, it issues the ML for that groups. Lock keeps the encrypted leaf key material locally in logout destroy. Remember, this loops right back to that rest encryption gap. Lock is only meaningful if the locally stored leaf key is encrypted, something that the user has to provide to unlock. Without that key hierarchy, lock is just... Lock unlock requires... Back to easy.
我是美国人，你呢？
日本、
韩国、
韩国。
美国
美国
人
人和韩国人。
美国和日本。我
我
是韩国人，你呢？我是日本人，你呢？
日本、美国、
是
Is this where I am? That's all.
美国人，你呢？
I feel like I'm
中人，
韩人，
我是日本人。
嗨，我是美国人。
我是中人。嗨，我是中人。
I'm Chinese.
我是中人，你呢？
我是中国人。
Yeah, this is the best of pronouns. I don't know why.
"妈妈，
干嘛？
妈妈，
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 妈妈，妈妈，
老公，
老公，老公，
老公，
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 也，
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 女儿，
女儿，
女儿、
女儿，
女儿，
女儿、
女儿，
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 女儿。
这是她的老公，对不对？
This is her husband, right? She is. She speaks.
英文，
这是他的妈妈，对不对？
这是她的妈妈。This is her mom, right? 对。爸爸。
爸爸。医生，儿子和妈妈，儿子和妈妈。
他
中国人，这是我的爸爸。
这是
这是我的爸爸。
我的儿子是
teacher。
老师。
你的老公，你的老公。
我是英国人。
我的儿子是老师。我的儿子是老师。我的儿子是老师。
我的爸是医生。
英国人和中国人，英国人和中国人。
这
嗯
是
啊
他
的his husband. What's 老公。
老公。
Swedish。
他的爸爸，英国人。
She。
他的爸爸是英国人。
Oops。Almost done.
也是
我的儿子啊，女儿。
老师，
这是他的爸爸吗？这是他的爸爸。这是他的爸爸吗？妈。
我的
儿子。我的女儿也是中学生。我的女儿也是中学生。我的女儿也是中学生。
医生。我的女儿也是医生。我的女儿是医生。我的女儿也是医生。我的女儿也是医生。也。
他的老婆。一。
英国人，老婆和儿子。老婆
老
和
婆。
儿子。
我的儿子是老师。
加拿大、英国。加拿大、英国。
这
这
是 老婆，
他是加拿大人。
加拿大，
加拿大。
他是中学生吗？
他
他的老公。
老公是英国人。
英国人。
他的老婆是
是。也。
也律师，
这是我你的妈妈，对不对？
这
是
是
是这
我的儿子。
他的妈妈是中国人。我的儿子是大学生。
学生。This is on.
他的儿子吗？这是
爸爸的
爸爸和儿子。
对，我的儿子是中学生。
中学。
你
God. This messes you up if you know Spanish. You,
你
you and
你你
你的
儿子。
你的儿子. Your son is British, right? 你的儿子国人。
英国人。对不对？
你的女儿。
你的女儿
女儿
是
老师
老师吗？
See you middle.
他是中学生吗？他
爸爸是加拿大人。
Daughter is a student. 她
他的女儿是
学生
学生。
学生 Husband and son.
老公和儿子
儿子
对，他是
是
爷爸爸。英文
哎
英文加拿大
brain
老婆
和
和儿子。
one more. 儿子
儿子
律师
律师
律师音乐
音乐对
他的妈妈是中国，
中国人，
对不对？
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 对
克爸爸
这是他的妈妈，这是他的妈妈。
老婆
我的女儿也是中学生。我的女儿也是中学生，也是中学生。我的女儿也是中学生。
Husband
老
英国人和中国人和中国人
儿
他是中学生吗？
我也是律师。
也是also doctor
我的女儿也是
是
医生。
我的爸爸
他是医生吗？
加拿大、英国。
天人I think this is very strong. I agree with your dependency chain. You're right that cap plus inactivity should be paired. Cap alone won't control stale device buildup. You're also right that lock is meaning out local key wrap. Token clearing alone is not a security boundary. Two important nuances to add. Last. So hard. Group removes the only active device leave. How do I make forward progress? One thing I don't like about this is that now you're trusting the server not break all the groups. That's just did not get it. one thing I think about with this is like, maybe the technology doesn't exist, or I don't have the skill to like do this yet. So where am I stuck? Normally, what I try to do here is every time I get stuck, I just try to rubber ducky with the models. But the problem I'm having with doing that with the models is there's so much to keep track of that, like, by the time we've incorporated all the considerations, it's already like forgetting the original stuff. And it's not even clear that there's like a good path really here. You want pup? Can I help you? Just not to think this stuff. I can have a job and exercise, take breaks. Don't push yourself. Don't have to really challenge yourself. So where am I stuck right now? I'm thinking. I'm just thinking about how hard all this stuff is. That basically, I have to be able to let the user lock their account or log out. If they log out, it clears all of their session, which means that the next time they log in, we need to add a new leaf key, which is fine. We're already going to have to do that. But now we have to have a limit on the number of leaf keys too. We're going to have to do that too. Make sure that's enforced, and then make sure that we can, on the server, submit, you know, hey, this session is old, go ahead and clean that up. And then have the client act. What I really need to do is I need to just get to a state where I can have 2 people in a group and everything's encrypted, and then keep going from there. So I like have all that stuff set up, but it's just some of these things you don't want to be changing later. I'm thinking, am I going to be able to get this to a place today where I can start doing something at my next session? Or do I put this off for another session and then regroup? Try to incorporate this all to update the DOM. It's a little bit late. I haven't done that much. But this stuff just really takes a lot out of me. Because the thinking is just tough. Tough. How you doing, Miss Pop? How you doing? I hate putting it off because I just feel like I don't want to come back to it. Maybe I should just do. But the issue is the thing I gotta do next is like, I had some set up. I gotta proceed. I gotta like tell it what to do next. What to do next. We have a recovery passphrase. I don't think we have the historical yet. That's what we're gonna be setting up next. It's stupid to just not think about it and go do something and have to change it afterwards. Maybe faster just. Or no. Like, would it be faster if I just did a whole version of the server and then like took all of that, started over again? I have to come back. Oh, man. Ready. I don't want to. I don't want to learn some new words. I could do some flashcards. Do flash. Do it on the. Yeah, you can't. Am I level 8 or? We get level 8? Alright, I'm calling it for now. Doing anything here. Thanks for watching. Watching later. Have a good morning, evening, afternoon, night. Thanks. Yeah.